us every day, to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide.
In today's complex mortgage world, finding the right direction can be challenging. That's where Lighthouse Advisors comes in. With over 25 years of experience, we provide fractional leadership and executive oversight, guiding companies through transitions, growth, and innovation. From IMBs to brokers to credit unions to tech firms, our team of seasoned professionals is here to shine a light on solutions, ensuring your business thrives in every environment. At Lighthouse Advisors, we don't just guide, we empower. Together, let's create a ripple of success across the industry. Email us today at laura@lighthouseadvisors.com. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. We are in for a treat today because we have the amazing Aru Anavekar. She is the CEO of BotSplash. I recently had the pleasure of having a wonderful conversation with her, and this goes back to, you know what, everyone? Those connections that we make on LinkedIn, or those connections we make at a conference, or those connections that we make within our industry, lean into them, because those connections can really, really develop into bigger things. So today we have the joy of listening to the wonderful wisdom that Aru is going to bring us, and we're going to kick it off with the very first question of, if you were going to share one of the best pieces of advice that you have ever received, what would that be?
Laura, thank you so much for having me. And just the word wisdom makes me feel so old. I don't know why. So growing to an age where I can share wisdom and experiences, that itself is a privilege. So thanks again for having me. And such a wonderful question. And every time such a question has come up, it usually happens that I'm going through so many different things. I'm like, I like this, I like that. That book said something, and so many things. But in the scope of our conversation today and things that have happened this week or how I'm reflecting back, I will say there was this conversation years ago, decades ago, I had with my dad. And he always used to say, 3 things you want to hold them so tight as a baby's fist. Just don't release them. And those 3 things you want to hold in that fist is your finances, knowledge, and emotions. And I'll just break it down, right? What he means or meant by finances is whether it's personal, business, any kind of finance, you don't have to be too open about it. If someone thinks you're worth $1 million, you're worth $1 million. You don't have to say you're not. You don't have to say you're double than what they think. Unless there's a need to talk finances, never, ever disclose or talk about finances. The second one was around knowledge and learning. I know we all say it's great to share knowledge and learning, which is true. So I want to make sure there's no misunderstanding. But his aspect was, when you're in a crowd of people, you don't want to show off what you know. So talk limited, share to the scope of what that conversation is. If the topic of conversation is not something that you have to show off what you did at work or personal life, last week, a month ago, how you received this award or credits for something you did, do not. Keep it to yourself. And in situations where you know you can help someone, or you're in a team and your team needs help, and you exactly know your knowledge is going to be of use, make sure you open up, share it, and execute it at that time and resolve the things that it's surrounding by. And his third thing was, keep your emotions in check. You don't have to cry down for sympathy. You don't have to get overly angry and try to prove a point that you're having it the right way. Again, it's difficult, especially I would say in COVID times and so many distractions, digital influence. But overall, I try and make it a practice to use these. But to our conversation, I wanted to make sure I shared this piece of advice, which has been very strongly ingrained.
Wow. Well, number one of the joys that I get from doing this podcast, of course, is hearing these different pieces of wisdom. And I will tell you, if I was going to say who are the most impactful or imprinting on us, it's usually our parents or grandparents, some type of family connection, right? And
Absolutely.
I love hearing these pieces of wisdom passed down through generations, right? That now are on us to then continue to pass down, right? So let's dive into this, right? So the very first one, let's go into the finances, right? So this is something that's very interesting as time has passed, because years ago you never spoke about finances or threw that out in public. And as time has passed, in newer generations, that's not the case. They're very, very open about sharing, whether they're making $100 or $1 million, they're sharing it with everyone. And I kind of follow your father's advice that I'm always one of those, because you even used a great example. You even said, if someone is willing to pay you the $1 million, right? If we're going to use that number, right? If someone's willing to pay you $1 million, why say I want $500,000 if someone thinks that your worth is $1 million, right? Like, you give a perfect example of sometimes we sell ourselves short, right? Sometimes by us putting something out there, maybe they would have given you even more, or maybe they would have been paid more for that service or that product or your knowledge, going back to the knowledge one, right?
Mhm.
So I love that, because I'm definitely on the same page with you, that I was brought up that that's not something that you make public knowledge, because it's just something that you're going to deal with on a case by case. You're not going to publicize it out there. Now, the knowledge piece is another very interesting thing about that, because I agree that you apply it, but you don't always apply it, right? It's not always the situation that you apply it. And then emotion, man, we can have a very long conversation on this topic, because, being a woman leader in the mortgage industry, so many times people would ask, well, what's the difference of sometimes being the only woman at a board table, right? Or in a situation
Yep.
where you are. And I, a lot of times, say to other women, you've got to keep your emotions in check. Good or bad. This is not necessarily anything to do with whether you're about to cry or whether you're about to say yippee.
It's how you get perceived once you play it out.
Correct.
You cannot undo what is seen. So
That is correct. That is so correct. Even the word feel. I've trained so many people. The word feel should not be part of a professional conversation, because your feelings or your emotion has nothing to do with that particular situation.
or execution. Yeah, absolutely.
That's it.
Right on that one.
That's it. So now, love the advice. Very wise man. So happy that you were able to have that instilled in you. And now I want to know, how have you taken that? Those three things. I even love your analogy about holding on to the baby's hand. Like, I can picture that. That hold it tight, right? Hold on.
Hold it tight.
I love that. How have you taken that and applied it? I mean, listen, I even want to go a little bit about you. I mean, I know you came in, you were working for a very large company, and then you branched off to become an entrepreneur and create your own company. So you now are on that entrepreneurial journey, right? So how have you applied that advice to your current professional role as an entrepreneur, as
Absolutely.
a business owner?
Yeah. And it's always work in progress, right? Every single time. I will say I've definitely held fist pretty tight on finances. And in what I mean by that is the way I carry myself, the way personal life is carried. I'm very down to earth, like very basics, right? So to me, sometimes we reveal our financial stability or instability based on how we carry ourselves. people that may not have much might want to live a life that shows that they are much above the means that they can afford. So for me, comfort and sanity of mind is very important. So I don't indulge in things which are kind of a one-time thing. Like I'm not going to upgrade to something which I don't know I want it or don't want it. But even taking a step back on the business side, I've been leading this team for about 7 years now. And to date, people that talk to me the very first time still have the most curious question of who's funding you? And I'm like, our clients are funding us. And they're like, no. Who's your investor? I bootstrapped.
Ooh.
You're not getting it. Whose money helped you start? My savings.
That's bootstrap. That's a
stop.
bootstrap.
It will not stop. So I think I did pretty good job in keeping that clout of like, hey, this is what it is. But if you still feel there's this hidden source out there, when you find it, let me know who's funding me. So I think keeping check on finances, having your life be stable just on the note of finances is very, very important to me, just as a practice. And that's something we in family also talk. Like, it doesn't matter what you want or desire. If you have what you need, that's the baseline. Live with it. Onto the knowledge side, I will say earlier days in my career, I was absolutely, I know this answer. Let me do this, or let me take this project. There was a lot of give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Especially after starting Bot Splash, I've gone more on to, I still have, sometimes I'll come in and be like, hey, I want to be involved. I want to be in the weeds, but I consciously try my best to stay out and either be the person who talks in the end or the last, so that I can hear my team contribute, hear their ideas, and then only chime in if I'm needed to. But that's definitely something that I everyday practice.
That in itself is wisdom. Because from someone that has built businesses, when I was younger and just starting out, I thought I always had to jump in, and I thought as the leader, I thought I had to do that. Like, I thought it was expected of me.
Or I felt I was lazy if I didn't have the solutions. I'm like, I should be working. I should have 100 solutions for one problem.
Right.
Yeah. So reversing that.
But then in wisdom, you realize you're not doing the best thing for your team or your company when you do that. But you don't realize that when you're a earlier in your career leader.
Yes. You're like marching on. I'm like, I can solve it all because it's me. So yeah. And over time, right, you realize there's a very thin difference between like having that I want to solve, I can solve, and turning into a narcissist where it's like the world revolves because I am in it. The world is revolving. You are part of it. So yeah. Yeah. And finally, anger emotions, it's an everyday thing. There are times I will burst out, but I try to maintain as much as I can.
And I think things happen. We're human. We're human. It's going to happen. And you know, someone one time gave me the best advice, that they said, if you find yourself where it's coming out, excuse yourself professionally and walk away. Like, literally, whether you have to go to the ladies' room or, you know, wherever you're going, just say, excuse me, and walk away. Allow yourself to compose and come back to the situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Saying nothing is more important than saying something that you regret. So absolutely.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love these types of conversations because it is, I mean, listen, the reason why it's great to have these conversations is because it validates, we've all experienced this. We've all had these situations happen at some point in our careers and in our lives. And that's why a lot of times when you hear other people saying it, you're like, oh, yes, I can relate to that because I experienced that. I went through that, or I'm going through that now. And I'm
Absolutely.
learning to get through that. We're humans. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to have all the answers. That's the joy. That's the great thing about life, is that tomorrow hopefully we're going to get another day to try
Absolutely.
again,
Yes.
right? We're going to learn and we're going to try again tomorrow. All
Absolutely.
right, man, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing all this great stuff. And now I want to hear, for all of our audience, what is your piece of advice that you would like to share with all of them?
Absolutely. Thanks for that one. So one of the strongest things, if I have to reflect back and see where I am today, what has helped me get there. One common thing I keep going back to is the things I did. My career at the banks and at the lending tree and all, I uniquely made sure not only did I do my job, which I loved and enjoyed, but also understanding what my peers did, understanding what other departments did, and learning a little bit every single day. I'll not say things like 80-20 rule, 80% towards your everyday role duties, but 20% somewhere else. But that curiosity of learning, right? Keep that active, because you never know what you learn when, how you might use it in the future. So sorry about that. But to me, if I can learn, I know this will sound a little bit of the Elon Musk thing. It's like, if I work 80 hours per week, I can get what other people do in 2 weeks. In some ways, it is true, right? If I can get more experience in 1 year than just doing my job and my role for that 1 year, I'm definitely far ahead, getting more experience and having conversations when the network around me forms with different experiences. So big advice for younger folks would be, do what is not assigned to you. Pick up tasks that your seniors or folks that are doing, and you can watch them do. Get curious about things. Know what you don't like before even getting into it. So that's something I would highly recommend. Give it a try. It's like going and having different kinds of food, traveling the world. If that's not what you like, at work, you can travel on so many jobs and tasks. Give it a try.
So I love your recommendation. And to be quite honest, I don't think anybody has said that. So you have a unique one too. So kudos on that too. It's interesting when my youngest son is in the tech field. And one of the pieces of it, he got a job during COVID. He got a tech job, and it was remote because it was COVID, right? But then he had the option of moving away to take the job. And I said, and of course, this was during a time of everybody was remote and it was okay and all that. And I said, you will make a mistake by not sitting in that office, asking questions, taking on projects that weren't assigned to you, showing up every day and being there, whether you're wearing a mask or not, or during that time and all that stuff. I said, your career will skyrocket if you're the one sitting there. And Absolutely. Of course, it wasn't traditional thinking at that particular moment, but looking back, I was right, I was correct that does make a difference. And I do say that for people that are just coming out of college or you're newer in a career, if you have the ability to work in an office and show up every day and listen to what's happening and ask questions about what's happening and raise your hand to be part of things, just to go to lunch with someone that's a senior and start asking them questions, find out what they're working on, whatever it is, put yourself in those situations. And again, I'm speaking of someone new out of college. Fast forward, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are in your career. You should always be listening, asking questions, meeting new people, seeing how you can learn. Because one piece of advice my mother always said was, no one can ever take your knowledge away from you. That is something that
Absolutely.
you have. And
Yes.
the more that we ask those questions and we feed our brains, whether we're reading, whether we're listening to podcasts, whether we're sitting down with
If you don't
someone,
practice it, it will be gone. So just practice
that's
it.
right. Exactly right. So thank you for that, because that applies to all of us, to every single person. It doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter any of that. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So
Absolutely. Yep.
keep doing it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. And I would like you give the audience a little bit about Bot Splash. Tell them what Bot Splash is and
Absolutely.
how they can find out about you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we are a SaaS platform, and by that, look at it as your CRM or an enhancement to your CRM. So our focus is to bring a lot of enhancements to sales. So top of the funnel sales, right? So if you're doing any kind of consumer direct sales, that's where we fit in. Whether you want to connect with your consumers through texting, web chat, Facebook, anything that you want, we have the tools to enhance your agents so that they are closing more deals. So to find us, it's botsplash.com, and then very active on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow our page on LinkedIn and look at our resources, would love to have a chat with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing all that wisdom. And we wish you all the best always.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for having me.